So I get asked the question all the time, why a teacher? What made you want to be a teacher? I've thought about that and thought about that, and this is all I've ever done. I've always wanted to be a teacher. I remember telling my mom when I was 5 years old that I was going to be a teacher. And when I was 10, again, I told her I was going to be a teacher. And then when I was 12, again, I told her I was going to be a teacher. I was going to go to college. I was going to do all these things, wonderful things in education, and I was going to be a teacher. But you know, growing up in the 80s on a farm with 9 other siblings, I knew that if I wanted to go to college, I was going to have to do it on my own. And that's why I became a teacher. I wanted to do this from the very depths of my soul since I was 5 years old. And so I worked hard. I went to college, but I got married along the way and had a family. So it took me a while to be a teacher. But what kept driving me to be a teacher is the students. Our students deserve a good education from good teachers. Teachers are there that are advocates for these students, that work their tails off to make sure they have a good education. I have met so many students over my years of education. I have hundreds that still call me Miss West. I think of them and I think of their hearts and everything they taught me throughout the years. I had a kindergarten class that was so unruly. I had 24 unruly little kids, and in this 24 class of kindergartners, there was maybe 5 little girls, so you can imagine how unruly this was. But that group was broken. They came from broken homes. They came from homes where there was very little stability. They were bouncing between mom and dad all the time. But they came to me, and they learned. That's why I do it. That's why I teach. I teach to be there for the kids. I had another time when I was teaching 5th grade, and I was in a portable here in Mesa, and I had 35 5th graders in this little portable. And these were Title I kids, so they didn't have much. And I had 3 really big boys. I really did have 3 really big boys, and I had built relationships, because I'm all about building those relationships, building a community where students can learn. But I remember I had this knock on the door, and this big Native American dad walks in and he says, "You have to come to my car right now." Now I'm 5 foot nothing. You know, I don't weigh much either. I'm not a very big person. But this big Native American comes walking in, and he wanted me to go to his car. Now that was terrifying for me. Well, the one day I probably left my door open to get some fresh air in here in Arizona, because we're all outside schools, and the rest of the time it was locked. And he walks in, and I'm putting my hands up, and I'm backing up, because he was probably a good 6'6", 6'7", a good 400 pounds Native American. And he says, "You have to come to my car. You have to come to my car." And I started to back up a little bit and ran right into my 3 bigger boys. And I turned back to them. I said, "What are you guys gonna do? You gonna save me?" They're like, "We got your back, Miss West. We got your back." Those are the times you remember. Now this dad wanted help with his son. He wouldn't get out of the car and come into my class. It was part of the first part of the year. And I worked with that student too, and eventually he did come. And he made headways, and it was so rewarding. But students need us. Students need us to be there. They need us to create a climate that they feel safe, where they can learn. So when I'm asked why I am a teacher, it's because of the students. It's because we are building characters. We are building from the ground up individuals that will be running our nation. So think of that, you teachers out there. Ask yourselves, why a teacher? And I hope your answer is, it's for the students. They deserve good teachers. If that's not you, if you aren't there for the kids and you're there for a nice summer break, nice holiday breaks, all these things that we get, they're little tiny perks, But if you're not willing to put in the time it takes to be a great teacher for our students, for our nation of students, then please leave. Teaching to me is a drug. It is a calling. When I walk into a classroom, I leave with so much joy and happiness. Is it hard? Is teaching hard? Absolutely. Do we make any money? None. We really don't. That's why I call teaching a calling. It's not my profession. I'm never going to be a rich teacher. There's no such thing as a rich teacher. But I am a builder of children. I am a builder of character. I'm a builder of citizens. That's why I teach. Today we're going to talk about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is building positive relationships with our students and parents. As I show you this picture of my daughter, Samantha, she is my oldest daughter, I think about my relationships with my own children. I do have 3 daughters and 1 son, and each of them is very close to me because I have raised them to be independent, to empower them with learning, to launch them into the world knowing that I did my very best in teaching. But part of that was building a strong relationship within our homes. Now, when we start to think of this in the schools, we look back to Harry Wong and his wife Rosemary. This came from probably the 1970s, 1980s. I'm not sure how far back they are, but they said the efficient and effective teachers know what they are doing and do things right consistently. Now, when we build effective relationships, we're doing the right thing for kids. We need to put the goal of teaching back onto the students and give them the education they deserve and they need. They need the focus to be on them. And then the learning comes. I love this quote by Dr. George Luck, who's a principal. He says, "You must capture a kid's heart to get to his head. If that's not where you start, please do another job instead. Kids must know you are to be true, and the key to that is without a doubt you." This is so true. Once we get the kids, once we get them to us, once we connect with them on a personal level, personal and appropriate level, I should say, because there is an appropriate with personal, but if we get these kids, if we capture their hearts, we build that mutual respect, and they know that we're their advocate, they will do whatever it takes to learn, to behave well, and all of these things. So let's start talking about this. Step 1. Right from the very onset of the very first day of school, you need to engage the students, and this is as simple as greeting the students at the door. Welcome them into your classroom. Give them a positive greeting. Have a smile on your face. Affirm the students that tell them, "I am so happy you are here." Now, I did this with my kindergarten students, my 4th and 5th grade students, even my high school students. I would greet them at the door every single time. And at the end of the day, or at the end of the class period, I would stand at the door and say goodbye, I'll see you tomorrow, whatever you need to do. Shake their hands and make sure that it's eye-to-eye contact, that they know they have your full attention. Somehow, this connects students to us, just having them feel welcome. They say one of the scariest things about the first day of school is who they'll eat lunch with. That is the absolutely scariest thing. And so as a teacher, if we're standing at the door and welcoming them the very first minute of the day, can you imagine how much their self-esteem goes up? We affirm them that, hey, we want you here and we're going to walk through the entire day with you. So give them that full attention. They deserve that full attention always. The next step is to get in touch with them. Find out what's going on with them. Find out their needs. Find out their likes, their dislikes. I love interest surveys. Interest surveys can be as quick as 2 or 3 questions sometimes. With the little ones, it was a little harder to do with kindergarten. But by the time you get into 2nd grade and on up, they like telling you what they like to do, and having a sheet in front of me helps me memorize who each kid is, gets to know their names, gets to know their likes, their dislikes. And then I really go through their Coom folder after start of school. I don't look at the behaviors in the Coom folders because I think we as teachers tend to be a little too negative sometimes in the behaviors. So I'll look at their test scores, see where they are, see what their needs, academic needs are at that point. And then the behavior needs, I build on those myself. I really try to not listen to the teachers they had the year before. Eventually, bad behaviors come out, and that is normal, but I try to give them each a clean slate when they come into my room. So they know that I'm there, I'm here, you can reach me anytime you need me, whatever it takes, I am here. So at the early levels, this is easy. At the high school levels, they're a little bit more withdrawn, so you kind of have to pull it out of them. A lot of times when I was a high school assistant principal, I would just name them by name walking out of each class, because I roamed the halls a lot. In between passing hours, I would go down through the hallways, out in the courtyard, wherever I was, I would wave to the students. I would try to get to know each and every name. One of my best mentors in life was a high school principal in a small rural town. He had 750 in his high school, and he knew every single student's name. He knew their parents. He knew what they were about, and he was so impressive. The discipline in that school was so minimal that we really didn't see it much because of him, because of the top. So if you're an administrator listening, get to know all the students. Get to know those parents. It'll make such a big difference. Step 3 is positive expectations. We need to go into it thinking that these kids are going to succeed. If you expect the students to be successful, you will constantly be aware and alert of the opportunities that you can help them reach for the stars. And that is so true at any age. The kids need to know that you believe in them, that they can reach for the stars. I teach at the college levels with the reading development classes. And a lot of these kids want to be at college, but they can't read at the college level. My expectations is by the time that semester is done with me, they'll feel ready. They will have the confidence in themselves. But that's my positive expectation for them, and I make them rise to that occasion. So you post a positive expectations for the year, or you just state your expectations for the year if you don't have a permanent classroom. You can create a climate in the classroom that communicates positive expectations, constantly telling them that I'm here. I believe in you. I trust you. You can do it, and you're their cheerleader. Set a goal that you as the teacher will have those high expectations. Don't get driven down by the realities of teaching, and don't get caught in the workroom with teachers that are negative. Leave the negative things at the door of your classroom. When you walk in, you're positive, and those children are yours to shoot for the stars. I truly, truly believe this. I have seen it in action. I have seen it work. And it's amazing what the kids will do when they know you're behind them. In the end, empower these children to grow. Great teachers teach their students to build bridges, facilitate their crossing, and then happily collapse those bridges and encourage them to build bridges of their own. Help them build those bridges. Empower them. Help them go out into the world and have positive influences around them. Help them know that they can learn. They're smart. They have the power to learn and to do something great in life. So how does all of this relate to parent relationships? The exact same tools I gave you here for working with students, I use with my parents. I engage them. I welcome them in. I find out about them. I find their interests, what they're about, what their family life is about. I give them positive expectations. I tell them, I expect to work with you. I expect to be a partner with you, hand in hand, because it does truly take a village to raise children. And you build those relationships back and forth. And then you empower the parents also, that they have a place in this classroom just alongside their children. One of the best things you can do is do positive phone calls home. Positive phone calls at the beginning of the year. Within the first week, I called every single one of my students, and I would talk to their parent. It was after I met them, after I knew a little bit about each of my students, I would call the parents, and I would tell them something great that I learned about their child. I had one little guy in kindergarten. His name was Tanner, and I called at the end of the first week, and the dad says, immediately, he says, what did he do? What kind of trouble was he in? And it kind of took me back. It wasn't that I was calling to give him any negative feedback. It was that I wanted him to know how much I enjoyed Tanner in my classroom. And you know, that set the tone for a completely different year with little Tanner. So with Tanner, what I did is there was some issues that arose in the coming weeks. And so 2 more positive phone calls home. I would pick something out that he did wonderful, and I would call and tell the dad. And then by about the 4th or 5th call, it got to the point where I needed the dad's help. But I had made these positive phone calls home that in the end, he turned around and says, what can I do to help you? I know you're here for my child. And that set the path for Tanner. You know, and this was kindergarten. So it set up a path for him to build upon that he carried off into the upper ages. And he became such a great student after those years. Living in a rural town, we get to see these small children grow into young adults. You know, as I watched my students go from kindergarten all the way through high school in one district, and I can say some of the best kids I've ever met started in my classroom, and these positive phone calls made a huge difference. So when you start to think about relationships, build those from the heart. Teaching takes a lot of heart. The realities of teaching is it's hard, but the more you make your classroom a positive environment, the better off you will be in the long run. I hope you enjoyed this webinar or this screencast. You can stay connected to me. You can get on my webpage and join my mailing list, and there's the address there. Or you can just text Dr. S. West at 22828, and that'll put you onto my mailing list. I really hope that you all come back soon, visit my website, and gather more information as needed. Again, thank you for spending some time with me, and I hope to see you again. Hi, my name is Dr. Stephanie West, and today we're going to talk about classroom management tips. Now, classroom management is one of those things that we all somewhat dread as teachers, and there's a lot of expectations, not only put on by ourselves, but by our administrators around us. But the key to classroom management is to make sure that the way you manage your classroom matches your personality. You know, if you have to follow a certain rule base, that's fine. But when you do your core class, manage it how it matches your classroom. So let's think about this. Visualize a well-managed classroom. Picture in your mind the image of a well-managed classroom. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What indications do you have that students are engaged in learning and not just being quiet? In all the years that I've taught, college, kindergarten, middle ages, high school, rarely was my classroom quiet. Quiet to the point, well, probably during testing, but they were really more discussions, movement, all of that. In my kindergarten class, we were constantly moving from one thing to the next. In high school, it was the same way. Even my middle grades, lots of movement, lots of group activities. So that's how I liked it. When it got too quiet, I was a little worried that the kids were maybe falling asleep. Maybe not, but you know, think about it that way. So I want you to stop. And you can stop this video if you'd like, but think of some ways that you think a well-managed classroom looks like and write it down. What does it sound like? What does a classroom sound like? Is it a soft buzz? Is it kids shouting? You know, all of us are a little different. My classroom always had a soft buzz. My classroom was looked like kids working together in groups, tables, all the way through, even through the college levels. So think about that. Stop and think. Now, classroom management challenges fall into 3 different categories, and these are the 3 categories we're going to talk about today. 1, establishing student expectations right from the get-go. What do you expect out of your students to do when they come into your classroom? Organize the classroom. How is it organized? How does it feel? Again, match that to your personality. Managing flexible groups. Collaborative working is the way it goes. It's when kids work together is when they learn the most. When they're engaged in the discussions, when they're actively taking part in the learning is when they learn the best. So establishing student expectations. Let's look at this. And right off the top, I always put an agenda up on my board. I always lined it out, hour by hour, half hour. When I did kindergarten, it was about every 15 minutes we changed. Now this one looks a little more spread out because I didn't have much room, but I wanted you to see this. Even at the high school, I would put, first 15 minutes we did this, reading time, what we were reading. I even would list what we were reading at the high school. In the high school English, writing time, anything like that. You can add those things so the kids know what's coming up. But an agenda on the board is really helpful to your special ed students. Special ed students need the structure. All kids really need the structure. And that's just also a way to keep yourself in check, that you're getting the things done, that you're on task, that time on task thing that we're always so concerned with. So think about putting an agenda on your board, no matter what age of student you teach. Now establish your student routines. These are the activities in a student's life within the classroom that center on time and procedures. There are procedures done that so often that the kids get so used to it, like turning in your assignments. Where do they turn in assignments? Do they hand them to you? Is there a basket? When you do centers or anchor activities, what are they doing? Are they moving around the room? Do they know a timer? Whatever you have. Have your rituals in place, your chants and cheers, like the cleanup song we all do. There's movement songs. I used to turn on a CD player at the high school when we were done, and they could turn in their stuff. So at the end of a test time, they had to turn stuff in. When we were cleaning up to leave before the bell would ring, I'd turn on a little music so they would know how to do things. So think about that. What rituals do you want to put in there? And decide, like a lot of teachers, they do the good news at the very beginning of the day. When's your good news time? Stuff like that. So think of that and establish those routines and rituals right from the start. Now, establishing your rules. This is great. Conversation levels. How loud do you want it to get? Getting help. What do they do? Respecting one another. Participation, on-task behaviors. Your movement. How do they get around? Transitions and stop and listen. It's often assumed that students will automatically understand your expectations for the teacher in various aspects of the classroom, but never make those assumptions. You need to actually put it down in your procedures and let them know exactly what they do. So organizing the classroom, this is a big deal. At each level we do it a little different, but it's so key that you organize the classroom that flows. So here's some possible seating arrangements. Now when I was teaching kindergarten, I taught kindergarten, and the high school principal came to me and asked me to come to the high school and help them with their reading. And I set my class up in rows like everyone else. Well, in about 2 days, it just didn't match me, so I went back to the grouping, like in the top picture there. I rarely did the U. I never had classrooms big enough to do the U, so I liked the clusters. I liked having the clusters where they could still talk to each other, collaborate when I needed them to, and then if we had a test, they could move them apart and then move them back together. But it's so key that you're comfortable with the arrangement. Like I said, rows was not me. Even though I went from high school and we had from kindergarten we had tables, to the high school who had desks, those funny desks, with the chair and the desk on it, It lasted about a week. And I thought, I can't stand this. I can't stand the rows. Nobody was talking to each other. I couldn't get around. You know, it was just easier to put them in tables. They say never to go more than 5 in a table. I like 4. My favorite number is 4 in grouping, but that's completely up to you. Now this one is more for the early childhood classroom, you know, because you've got your writing centers, your reading corner, all that kind of stuff. Here's another one. I use this format in my 4th and 5th grade classrooms. And you can see everything was along the walls, the outside. So I had centers, but they were more like folder centers where they go and they grab things and then they'd work together. And my teacher's desk was always as far in the back as I could get it, you know, anywhere completely out of the way, because I really never used my desk much. But think of that, you know, think of how you would like to situate your classroom so the kids have the chance to get along and to talk and to participate with one another. Now, managing flexible groups is key. We've all heard that the more students collaborate, the more they learn, and it really is true. So whole group instruction. So I'm going to go through some of, like, what is what? You know, what do you think is what? So whole group instruction is more your warm-ups, your introductions, your read-alouds, your shared reading, instructional games, discussions, all those kind of things. Now, when you get to your small group instruction, they're random things. Now, you can, when you start to put kids into groups, you can put them random, you know, whoever wants to be in whatever group, and that works for some groups. Heterogeneous, when you match their skills and readiness, or homogeneous is a mixture. Their interests, their cooperative levels. Individual work, you can do extension activities, remedial or practice activities, projects. You know, that's basically what individual work is. Now, when you form your student groups, some people use pretest, and they put the kids depending on their levels. I always like to know where my kids were, so I'd rank my kids. Are they high, middle, or low? I'd only put 1 high student in a group if I could, 2 middles and 1 low, because that way the high kids don't hurt each other or don't overbarrel each other. You know, they're usually kind of bossy, those perfectionists and leaders. You can sign up. They can sign up to do it. At the high school, I had sign-up groups. Interest groups is another one if you do reading groups, reading studies, and then your multiple intelligences. Now, here's the age-old question. If I'm working with a small group of students, what are the other students doing? And this is what I call creating anchor activities. Now, anchor activities are meaningful, ongoing assignments that students can work on independently while the teacher works with the small groups. So what are these kind of anchor activities? What can they mean? What are they about? This is where you have writing journals, you have creative writing prompts, you have independent reading, content reading, related reading, reading games, word games, keyboard, spelling. And you can look at this whole list. There's so many different things you can do that helps the kids to stay busy while you're working with the other kids. And that goes back, too, to your routines and procedures. Set those up so the kids know your expectations. I really hope this video has been enjoyable for you and you've learned something. Like I said, classroom management is not the easiest thing. This is something I could probably talk to you for a whole semester. But if you'd like to join my mailing list and get all my articles and whatnot, please text to DRS West to 22828, or you can click on that constant contact link there, or you can visit my website. Again, thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Hello, and welcome to another one of my training videos. Today we're going to talk about managing student behaviors. The key components to managing student behaviors are: 1. Timely and effective management of student behavior is critical for effective instruction to take place within a classroom. To start with, always model what you expect the students to follow. This will send a clear and concise message of how you want the students to behave. For a teacher to manage student behavior effectively, we must not only model the expectations, but have a knowledge of the students that we are teaching. So let's get started. Once again, building those student relationships is a fundamental component of a well-managed classroom. Teachers must be aware and practice a variety of techniques to maintain appropriate behaviors, which are dependent upon having knowledge of each individual student. Throughout this video, I'm going to have you reflect on 4 fundamental questions, which in turn will help you to see if your classroom management plan is working for those in your classroom. So question number 1, what systems are in place to effectively monitor student behavior? The structure of your classroom will make a huge difference in how your students respond to the routine and the makeup of the classroom. First, set your procedures and then train the students. This may take up to a month to 6 weeks, depending on the grade level you teach. The following is a list of common classroom procedures that need to be in place starting the first day of school. Expectations of how they come into the classroom, where their supplies and backpacks go, the process of going to the bathroom, expectations when asking questions, how to move from one activity to the other, how to leave the classroom, how to turn in assignments, and the process for late or make-up policies. There are several ways to respond and monitor to student behaviors that will not only assist the students in understanding the expectations of proper classroom behavior without losing any instructional time. Structured agendas make sure that your instructional time is structured in a way that students stay on task and are clear with times and expectations throughout the day or class period. Students thrive in structured environments. Nonverbal clues. We are all experts at the teacher's look, but my favorite nonverbal clue is to move around the room while I am instructing and when students are working. Those students that are talking while you are talking, just getting into their space will reduce the amount of talking when they are supposed to be working. Use the students' names. Just using a student's name in a positive way, such as John, what do you think about this topic, can get the students' attention and help them refocus on the task at hand. Clear traffic patterns. Set up your classroom so there are no obstacles in the way when you roam the entire room or when you need to get to a specific student or group of students quickly. And then monitor from the back of the room. Sometimes just instructing from the back of the room will enable the students to sit up a little straighter, and it gives you a different view on what the students are doing from behind them that they don't see from the front of the room, that you don't see from the front of the room. So there are many different types of checklists that you can also use throughout the day, such as running record, observation notes, evaluation notes, formative and summative assessments, student self-evaluations, and then behavior intervention plans. So question number 2, how do you plan to address inappropriate behavior should that become an issue during the lesson? Dealing with inappropriate behavior can be very challenging, but there are many strategies, tips, and techniques that can be used to handle bad behavior. Some of these strategies are preventative, which others can be used during instructional time. So let's set the stage. First, establish a positive, supportive classroom atmosphere. Students are more likely to follow directions, work hard, and exhibit positive classroom behavior when they feel wanted and appreciated by the teacher. Establish a clearly defined set of rules and consequences. If the student knows exactly what is expected of them and exactly what will happen if they act out, they are less likely to cause problems. Organize the classroom. The classroom should be free of unnecessary distractions, not cluttered, and easy to get around in. This should help maintain student focus. And of course, get to know your students. Knowing their personalities, abilities, and backgrounds can greatly enhance your decision making. So when responding to student behavior, first we need to identify the exact problem. Claiming that a student has a bad attitude is too vague to be easily dealt with. Getting to the root of the problem may involve a conversation with the student or working with the guidance of a counselor.
Use positive responses for positive behavior. Pointing out and rewarding good behavior can be an effective way of reducing bad behavior. 3. Keep the kids busy and engaged in the material. As much as possible, students should have a sense that what they are learning is interesting and important. A student that is engaged in the subject matter is less likely to act out. A teacher that is excited and engaging himself or herself helps tremendously in this aspect. Another technique for attempting to keep students interested is to give them some control over the happenings in the classroom. A student that feels a sense of ownership in a task is less likely to disrupt it. Using physical proximity to curb bad behavior is another very effective strategy. If two students are talking while you are trying to speak, simply continue what you are saying, but move closer to the students. Students are less likely to act inappropriate when the teacher is right next to them. Question number 3. How does your grouping enhance student behaviors? Teachers are discovering that grouping and regrouping students in a variety of ways throughout the school day actually makes their job easier and makes their students more productive. Flexible grouping is a range of grouping students together for delivering instruction. This can be accomplished as a whole class, small groups, or with a partner. Flexible grouping means a lot of pre-planning. Teachers need to look at assessment data, test results, student needs, and abilities in order to determine the group size. It's essential when grouping students to not place them in the same group for every activity. The key to successful grouping is to be flexible so you can meet each individual's needs. Here are a few things to consider when you create your flexible groupings. Ask yourself, what is the best type of configuration to meet my learning outcome for this activity? Consider a teacher-led group, whole class, small group, or an individual teacher-directed activity, or a student-led group, collaborative, performance-based, or even in pairs. Evaluate all assessment data and look over student learning profiles to help you form groups. Identify the most effective grouping design. For example, group students by gender, previous group, student selection, or teacher selection. Successful grouping does not happen overnight. It takes a little bit of planning and classroom management skills. As you group your students for differentiated instruction, consider the following tips. Create a color-coded system or chart to help you and students know which groups they're in. Give specific instruction about the task groups must perform. Post written instructions and expectations so you don't have to repeat yourself. Model and practice routines and procedures for getting into and out of groups. Develop a routine so your classroom isn't utter chaos after a group task is completed. Set a specific time limit for students to complete their group work. It's best to set an alarm so students know when the alarm goes off, they must proceed to the next activity quietly. Implement a student learning log for each group they are in. A color-coded one works best for students to keep track of and record what they have completed in each group. So question 4, what part does motivation play in student behavior? There are 2 different types of motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic. Both of these are important in understanding how students are motivated, which in turn will help you in maintaining a well-maintained classroom. Intrinsic motivation includes a fascination with the subject, a sense of its relevance to life and the world, a sense of accomplishment in mastering it, and a sense of calling to it. Extrinsic motivation includes parental expectations, expectations of other trusted role models, earning potential grade of the course of study, and their grades. So the following are some research-based strategies for motivating students to learn. So first, become a role model for your students' interests. Deliver your presentations with energy and enthusiasm. As a display of your motivation, your passion motivates your students. Make the course personal, showing why you're interested in the material. Once again, get to know your students. You'll be able to better tailor your instruction to the students' concerns and backgrounds, and your personal interest in them will inspire their personal loyalty to you. Display a strong interest in student learning and faith in their abilities. Use examples freely. Many students want to be shown why a concept or technique is useful before they want to study it further. Inform students about how your course prepares students for future opportunities. Use a variety of student active teaching techniques. These activities directly engage students in the material and give them opportunities to achieve level of mastery, such as teach by discovery. Students find as satisfying as reasoning through a problem and discovering their underlying principle on their own. Or cooperative learning, flexible grouping activities are particularly effective as they also provide positive social pressure. Set realistic performance goals and help students achieve them by encouraging them to set their own reasonable goals. Design assignments that are appropriately challenged in view of the experience and aptitude of the class. Place appropriate emphasis on testing and grading. Tests should be a means of showing what students have mastered, not what they have not. Avoid grading on the curve and give everyone the opportunity to achieve the highest standard in grades. Be free with praise and constructive criticism. Negative comments should pertain to particular performances, not the performer. Offer non-judgmental feedback on students' work. Stress opportunities to improve. Look for ways to stimulate advancement and avoid dividing students into sheep and goats. Give students as much control over their own education as possible. Let students choose paper and project topics that interest them. Access them in a variety of ways through tests, papers, projects, presentations to give students more control over how they show their understanding to you. Give students options for how these assignments are weighted. So as you are running your classroom, here are some examples of a well-behaved classroom, a well-managed classroom. Students are consistently well-behaved and on task. Teachers and students establish clear rules for learning and behavior. The teacher uses several classroom management techniques to maintain appropriate student behavior. The teacher overlooks inconsequential behavior. The teacher deals with students who have caused disruptions rather than the entire class. And the teacher attends to disruptions quickly and firmly. I hope you enjoyed your time with me today, and I hope you will join me again in the coming weeks. As always, please visit my webpage and blog for the latest updates, and have a wonderful day.
And welcome back to another one of my instructional videos. Today we're going to talk about planning and designing instruction. One of the main ingredients of a successful lesson is a well-designed and well-planned lesson plan. Before you start the lesson, gather all of your information before writing the lesson plan, including the assessment you plan to use. If you have a standard lesson plan format you need to follow, get that out. Once you have all the information you need, then it'll be easy to put the lesson plan together. The first step in planning a lesson is to identify the state standard to be covered. Then we would write a good student-friendly learning objective. This learning objective needs to be exactly what the student is expected to learn and evidence of mastery. Here is an example of a student-friendly learning objective with a standard. So the standard states identify and model basic addition facts, sums through 10, and the corresponding subtraction facts. The student-friendly learning objective would state, students will identify and model the sums and differences of numbers up to 10. Students will show mastery by matching the fact families for addition and subtraction up to 10. Here you have the standard. You'll also have along with the mastery of what the students will do. Next, we need to add the meat into the lesson by adding the strategies and steps you will do in delivering the lesson plan. Keep in mind what you as the teacher and what the students will be doing to show progress towards mastery of the objective. As you develop the crux of the lesson plan, put in benchmarks along the way showing that the students have mastered the steps in mastery. Here are the key instructional strategies that most of us use in one way or another. First, identifying similarities and differences, summarizing and note-taking, reinforcing effort and providing recognition, homework and practice, non-linguistic representations, cooperative learning, setting objectives and providing feedback, generating and testing hypotheses, cues, questions, and graphic organizers. The lesson plan is a tool. Remember, this tool is to guide instruction and keep the lesson focused. Many times, teachers will plan these elaborate lesson plans that are disconnected from what actually transpires in the lesson. This is where you will see student achievement drop, which is the opposite of what you want to happen. When instructional plans are sequenced from basic to complex, build upon prior knowledge and deepen understanding, then learning is relevant, organized, and comprehensible. The goal here is to maximize learning while the instruction is being delivered. The assessment is the end. Include a well-developed, sound assessment into the lesson plan. Personally, I start here. I plan my assessment first and then work backward. This way, everything is aligned with what I want the students to show mastery at the end of the lesson delivery. Lastly, reflection. Once the lesson has been planned, designed, and delivered, reflect on how the lesson plan went. Becoming a reflective practitioner is one of the best things you can do to become a great teacher. I personally keep a journal on my lessons and how they go and what I can do to improve the next time. I try and be really honest with myself and what I'm doing and seeing in my students. This can be a powerful tool in your teaching path if you will just do it. The goal of everything is to develop a quality lesson plan with the rigor that promotes learning for all students. Again, I hope you join me again for another one of my instructional videos. And here is my website if you want to see everything on my blog. Thank you and have a great day. Hello, my name is Dr. Stephanie West, and today we're going to talk about writing a successful lesson plan. There is evidence that successful lesson plans are aligned closely with the local grade-appropriate state learning standards. This can be in the form of the state standard itself, a student-friendly objective, or an essential question. Here's some examples of the learning goals. So we can go by our state standard, compare and contrast two or more versions of the same story by different authors or from different cultures. A student-friendly objective would read, "Today I will learn how to compare and contrast two versions of the same fairy tale." An essential question would be framed as, "How can comparing and contrasting two versions of the same fairy tale using a Venn diagram deepen my understanding of the two stories?" So all of our lesson activities, materials, and assessments should always be aligned to state standards. Activities and materials are directly aligned with the written objective. They're sequenced from basic to complex, which shows a progression from basic to complex that matches the level of student needs. We need to build on prior student knowledge and provide appropriate time for student work, lesson, and unit closure. There should be adequate time for students to develop and deepen their understanding of the lesson's objective with appropriate time for closure and even reflections. So here's an example of an activity with its materials and assessment. So the teacher will read two versions of Cinderella and model using a Venn diagram to compare and contrast two versions. Then, based on a student reading levels and interest, students will then choose two versions of the same fairy tale to compare and contrast through a Venn diagram. Lastly, the students then explain their completed Venn diagrams in pairs. Students will then complete an exit ticket answering the lesson's essential question. How can comparing two versions of the same fairy tale using a Venn diagram deepen my understanding of the two stories? Then we need to make sure our lesson plan is appropriate. The plan should align with grade level expectations and content standards, and the plan should also incorporate student interests and learning needs. For example, when teaching the standard compare and contrast two or more versions of the same story by different authors or from different cultures, the teacher should expose students to a variety of reading levels with different traditional, modern, and cultural versions of the same fairy tale. Lastly, we need to accommodate for individual student needs. In writing successful lesson plans, it is necessary to provide opportunities to accommodate individual student needs. The teacher needs to ensure that differentiated the lesson for the various student levels and needs. This may be in the form of ability levels based upon pre-assessment, interest levels, and even learning styles. Here are some examples of how to make accommodations. So during a guided reading lesson, the teacher plans for students to compare and contrast two or more versions of the same fairy tale using multiple leveled text based on the reading levels of the students in the class. The teacher also incorporates traditional and modern versions of the same fairy tale to spark student interest. Flexibility. Always allow some flexibility within the plan, just in case you need to reteach or scaffold your lesson plans to ensure that everyone is on task. Then, once the plan has been planned, designed, and delivered, reflect on how the lesson plan went. Make notes on what went well and what could be improved upon. Remember, the goal is to develop a quality lesson plan with a rigor that promotes learning for all students. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you will plan on joining me again for my next one. Here is my blog that you can visit that has all of my videos posted. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Hello, my name is Dr. Stephanie West, and today we're going to talk about project-based learning. Now, project-based learning is a big buzzword in education right now, but what is project-based learning and why should we be using it? What is the benefits? So let's take a look at this. Now, if we go back to John Dewey in 1920, he says learning should be grounded in experience and driven by student interest. He goes on to say, education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. So when we look at project-based learning, it is student-centered, it's inquiry-based instructional model, and it's authentic learning. Now, authentic learning means that when students identify the gaps in their knowledge, conduct research, and apply their learning to their everyday life and learning, then they grow academically and their intelligence grows. So let's look at this. Now, the project approach started out in medicine, engineering, and economics. As it moved into the K-12 education, it evolved into a method of instruction focused on core content that was rigorous, relevant, and very hands-on. Now, here's a lot of information about the project approach. And it started with the constructive theory, this hands-on approach where kids come to school with the quest to understand their life and those things around them. We need to remember that school is life and that their time in school is 80% of their day. So this is their life at the time. So we need to be constructing their knowledge as the teachers facilitate, not be lecturing all the time. Let's learn through experience. Let's learn through building our experiences through different things. And this is why the diversity in our schools can be used as such an advantage, because we can bring in the diversity of thinking, the interests, the backgrounds, which when we utilize diversity, our instruction grows, our students grow more aware of those around them, and their empathy to one another, their social and intelligent and emotional intelligence grows. All of those things grow. So We also need to remember that our classrooms are flexible learning spaces. Gone are the days when we have rows. Gone are the days when maybe we have individual desks. I have seen tables used clear through the high school. I've used grouping. When I was a high school English teacher, I used groupings of four or five in a group with their desk, of course, because that's all I had. But I had a teacher down the hall that used long tables. But the room needs to be flexible. You need to be able to move things aside if you need to, push the desk out, push the tables out, whatever they do. But when you use the project approach, make sure that you are being flexible within what you're thinking of what the classroom should look like. So we're going to talk about PBL, and we can break it down into 6 easy steps. This will give you the ideas of how to design, implement, and guide your students through the PBL process. So step 1, identify the outcomes of the unit. This can be standards-based, collaborative, research, problem solving, and it should be where they're acquiring content knowledge. So think of your standards, and that's the content you need to cover in your class, or the content in your curriculum guides at your district. Every district has them. And then before you even start, think of how are you going to assess the students at the end. Self and peer evaluations, learning reflections, writing samples, and rubrics are key to a successful PBL unit. So keep those in mind as you go through and really look at the targets that you want to hit and what's the best way to assess the students at the end. So step 2 is you're going to design the scenario. So design the unit based on an embedded problem that will emerge through student brainstorming. These are real complex issues related to your course content. The key here is the scenario should elicit the types of thinking, discussion, research, and learning to meet the outcomes. And it needs to be motivating, interesting, and generates discussion. Because if you throw something boring out there, let's face it, they're not going to do it. So let's take a look at a few ideas. Now, project-based learning, I have seen and used clear down into kindergarten. When I was a kindergarten teacher, we did projects like this. So how to grow a garden, keeping the world clean, planning a Mars community. We had a whole unit on outer space. I know a lot of teachers love the dinosaurs. You could do something with dinosaurs. How did they come? How did they go extinct? Whatever. And a lot of these units, they were considered fluff, but if you do it right and you connect it to your standards, you can do almost whatever you want in these project-based units. Now let's look at 3rd through 5th. You can create an interactive family tree with pictures, video, whatever. Population growth. You can define, analyze, and visualize an abstract concept like freedom, patriotism, anything like that. When we get up into the secondary, we can make it a little bit harder. Artfully illustrate the global history of human and civil rights. Now, when we talk about artfully, this is bringing in a lot of color, magazine clippings maybe, a lot of drawing maybe, graphic arts on the computer. Develop a feasible response to potential asteroid-Earth collisions. How fun would that be? I can just see your 8th grade kids going nuts for that one. And perform a cause-effect analysis on a local concern. So here I am in Arizona. Our concern is water. Our weather is weird this year, and we're a little low on water, so you can talk about drought. You may be in an area where there's hurricanes. What would you do in the case of a hurricane? So think of it that way. 9th through 12th grades, design the next Google. Could you imagine what they come up with at this age, designing the next Google? Start and run a profitable business. I've seen this done several times, and it's so great for them to see what it takes to have a job, hold a job, but then to run a job that's successful, or run a business that's successful, and then create a photo documentary and then turn it into a film. The kids love to use videos. They videotape everything. They take pictures of everything. Could you imagine what the outcome of this would be? Such a cool thing. So step 3, let's introduce the PBL. If your students are new to this practice, And especially in the younger ages, you may want to just start with an easy problem, such as long lines in the cafeteria. How are they going to figure out how to fix long lines in the cafeteria? Now, you will need to group the students. Rule of thumb for myself, I never put more than 4 or 5 in a group. That seemed to be the best. And be careful with your leaders of your class. You don't want 2 leaders in one group, or they kind of run over the top of each other. Be careful not to have too many of your low students in your groups either. So I usually, in my groups, I would do one leader, 2 middle-of-the-road kids, and 2 low kids. So you still have role models. The middle kids and the upper kids can really help the lower kids move along. Introduce the assignment expectations, the rubrics, the timeline, how this is going to run every day, anything like that. Kids love structure. So introduce them. Be very clear on how this is going to run. And then allow the time, your groups. So get them into groups and then give them the scenario and allow the time for the kids to read through the scenario. So they kind of know what's going on. And this may take a while. You know, this may be one day that you're doing in your class if you only have them for like a class period of an hour. Maybe this step 3 is the whole class period, just to get things down and rolling. Step 4. This is where you're going to start your group brainstorming. The groups are going to define the problem. They're going to figure out what it is. What do they know about the problem? What do they need to learn about the problem? And where do they need to look to find information and data about the problem? Groups will then make assignments with one another to research the project. So they all should have group assignments. In my planning guide, I put down some of the ideas for group assignments. So you can look at the planning guide if you'd like to look at that. The product performance is step 5. This is where you're going to start to see all of it come together. Now your step 4, if we go back to step 4, this may take a while. Now this part and the research part just takes, at least a week maybe during the time that you're putting it together. And then step 5, you probably need another week for them to put all of their stuff together. And then set performance times. Have them get up and really perform and present their findings. So think of projects you can create that synthesizes the research, solutions, and learning. I think this comes like a science fair. When I think of a research fair, I think of a science fair or the end step in a PBL project. This is where the kids get to display what they've learned. I've also seen where they invite the parents in for the research fair, which is so much fun. We did country reports. When I taught 6th grade, we did country reports, and the kids had to pick a country. There were groups of 4 or 5. No, actually, there was just groups of 2. So we just did 2, so we'd have a lot of displays. And then we had a country fair where the kids had to dress up in the garb of their country. They brought food in their country. They had a 3-tiered bulletin board thing. Those display boards, you guys know what I'm talking about. And they showed off all their research and everything, and it was a great family night with the kids. And these can be anything you want. If you don't want to go that far, they can be posters that you put on the board. We did a whole thing when I taught high school English. We did a whole thing on Shakespeare and the theater that he used. And I had some kids, they had to bring a presentation of the Globe Theater. And some made like popsicle sticks of the theater. Some had dioramas. Some had just drawings of the theater. So think of that. Think of what is your outcome? What do you want your kids to know? And come up with those types of things to do. Again, the kids love videos. And they're really good at PowerPoint presentations. Clear down into like 4th, 5th grade, they really get into PowerPoints. And then, of course, step 6 is your assessment. How are you going to evaluate the kids? And this is really good for rubrics. Make sure your rubric is in step 1 so the kids know what's expected of them from the very beginning to the very end. This is key to their learning because You never want to shock kids with assessments. Don't ever throw something at the end of the program or the end of the unit where you're shocking kids. It's really not fair. So use these rubrics. And a good practice here is reflections on their learning. This can be an essay. This can be through a prompt, a writing prompt in their journals. This could be a form they fill out at the end. However you want to run it, and depending on the age, you may want to run it a little different. So we went through the 6 steps, and here's the benefits of PBL. This is where it is so beneficial to the kids' learning, where the teacher is the facilitator. I mean, the days when you do PBL, your days just fly by. It's amazing how hard the kids work when they have a project that they are so attached to, and the days just fly by because it's student-centered, and then sit back and watch the critical thinking that's taking place, the research that's taking place, the synthesis that's taking place. It is the most rewarding projects you will ever do. And then these real-life scenarios leads to learning retention. When students can connect their learning to their real life, that's when retention happens. So when we talk about preparing students for tests, we can do that. In a way, we have to do that, but we can do that with real-life scenarios and how to research, how to summarize information. Think of all those reading and writing skills that you do. Math, you could do an engineering project, where they have to use angles to build a bridge. They have to use calculations and area, parameters, anything like that. You can think of PBL in those things where they're constantly hands-on researching and doing this and making it fun for them. I appreciate your time spending with this project-based learning. Here's my website if you'd like to subscribe and receive all of my emails. Also, I have a project-based learning planning guide that is placed on this website here, my downloadable lesson plans, for a very low price. So if you want the whole planning guide, which will walk you step by step with handouts, outlines, everything that you need to make this worthwhile. I hope that you've enjoyed this time with me with project-based learning, and I hope to see you again. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to all those teachers out there. Today we're going to talk about avoiding teacher burnout. Teacher burnout is on the rise. Many of you are having a hard time wondering why you're a teacher. Why are we in this profession that is so difficult? So let's look at this. What are some great ideas to help you survive the classroom, to be the teacher that everybody deserves and the teacher you want to be? So let's look at this burnout and see what we can do to fix it and help you out. Let's talk about your hours. Your hours in a day can be, as a teacher, we can do teaching, we can do preparation for 24/7, right? We can go all day and still plan and still feel like we're not done. But that's not fair. That's not fair to you, and it's not fair to the students in your classrooms. I want you to think about your hours. What are your contracted hours? Most of us have to be there from, say, 7:30 and to 3:30. Those are our contracted hours. Many of us add maybe 30 minutes on the end of the day. Do not add any more than 30 minutes a day to your contracted hours. That's not fair. You're not getting paid for this, and we know that we're not getting paid a whole lot. And if you're a really great teacher with great time management skills, you're going to be able to get this done in the time allotted. So set your times. Tell yourself you're going to go home at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock's 30 minutes past my time to be there. I'm leaving. I'm done. Then don't take work home. It's going to be there tomorrow. There's always grading. There's always great things we can do. But come on, leave it there. Go home. Enjoy your family. Have a nice dinner. Relax. Also, one other great tip to make things run smoothly in your classroom and to feel like you're getting it all done is to find a great parent. Who's your great parent in your classroom? Who's that one parent that you know will help you no matter what you ask them to do? Find that one parent that will help you with bulletin boards, that help you make your, your consumable books, ripping things out, putting them together, making your copies, cutting things out for your art projects. Find that great parent. I love grandparents too. Grandparents are a resource that not many people tap into. They love to come and read to the kids. And if they're there reading to the kids, you can do stuff in the back like grading and whatnot. So think of these people, think of your resources and use them. But make sure you go home on time. Never work a weekend. Never work past 4 o'clock if you can get by after it, or 30 minutes after your contracted time. So think about it and really go after that time. Now let's talk about days off. I don't want you guys to feel guilty that you're going to take a day off for a mental break. Why not? You deserve it. You're there all the time. You're always there for the kids when they need you, but you need mental breaks. Just like kids sometimes need a day off just for a mental break. So figure out, go through your calendar every quarter, start the quarter off and look at your calendar. What's in there? Where's a good day? Where's a good part of your unit that a sub could take over? And take a mental day. Now these are different than doctor's appointments. If you have doctor's appointments or dentist appointments or stuff like that, don't use your mental day for those. Use them for you. Go get your nails done. Go get your pedicures done. Go swimming. Lay out in the sun. I don't care what you do. But you deserve it. You're paid for extra days. You have days off built into your contract. Use them. And I'm not saying abuse your days off. Absolutely not. None of us administrators want to see that. But at the same time, use your days off. Now, when it comes to breaks, fall break, spring break, Christmas break, take a look at those times. Now, some people have a 2-week break if you're on a modified year-round, and maybe you could fit in a vacation then and there, but plan your breaks where you have a good rest, a solid rest where you're just home, you're getting caught up maybe in your home, maybe on your reading, maybe on your hobbies, whatever. Just don't pack your break so full of vacations and dentist appointments and doctor's appointments that you don't get the break you need. Again, you deserve a break. Take that break. Being a great teacher means that we know ourselves and we're going to take care of ourselves. Just like we take care of all the kids in our classroom, we need to take care of ourselves. That is so key. So use your breaks wisely. Don't go overboard on things and don't pack them so full of things that you can't have that break because you need the rest. So think of that. Use your breaks wisely. Now, when you walk out that door at the end of every day, leave it behind. Don't take work home. Once again, don't take work home. Leave it there. There's always tomorrow. We think about as a teacher, we are at the school, 80% of our daily lives is spent at that school. Leave it there. Use your other 20% of your day for you, for your family. Go home, have hobbies that you do. Every great teacher has a great hobby. They love to do something. There's got to be something out there that you love. Think about that hobby. If it's reading a book, if it's doing projects. Like I love home improvement projects. I love home improvement shows. I was fortunate this summer to go to Waco, Texas and see the silos for the Fixer Upper show, Chip and Johanna Gaines. And I just love it. So you can see behind me, I'll turn a little bit. This is my newly renovated kitchen that we did this last spring. My husband and I love home improvement projects. We're something that I've never tried before, taking down all the cabinets on the top and just putting up shelving for that country look. So find your hobby. I just finished my fire pit outside, and there's pictures coming up of it where I mosaicked the top of the fire pit. It was an old fire pit. It was cracking, and I took some time just for me to put out this mosaic, to do this mosaic top, and it was so therapeutic. Just to take some time to do something I like with my hands. So let it all go. Go home. It makes you a better teacher. And don't feel guilty about being taking care of yourself, is what I'm trying to say. Don't feel guilty. We're there for the kids all the time. All the time. Trust me, when we teach, those kids become our family. They become our kids, and we love them so dearly. But if you don't take care of yourself, you will burn out. Trust me. Take care of yourself. Take those mental breaks. Be who you are outside of class. And your kids will appreciate it because you'll come back the next day revitalized, ready to go again. All of those things. So think about that. You deserve breaks. You're a great teacher. So make yourself that much better. So the whole point of this video is to get you to realize there are ways that you burn yourself out. So let's talk about those things. And we talked about them before. Let's just summarize what we've talked about. You know, that check for understanding. So let's talk about it. So we are going to leave our work at work. We're going to leave on time. We're going to go home. We're going to have hobbies. We're going to take rests when we need them. We're going to take mental breaks when we need them. So when you think about your daily routine, think about how you can put all of these things that we talked about today into your daily routine. Rest. Take care of yourself. I'm going to do one, this next one I'm going to do on the teacher survivals is time management. How to get it all done and keep these things in mind. So I wanted to start with this one, but we're going to go into time management. I really hope you take these because we need good teachers. And all of you out there watching this, if you're watching this, then you're a good teacher and you want to avoid burnout. So think about these things. We need great teachers. Our kids need great teachers. They truly do. They deserve good teachers. All of those that are probably watching this, this is all we've ever done is teach. And teaching to us is, teaching to me is a drug. It gives me such a high when I have such a great day teaching and my students are progressing and moving forward. That is so rewarding to me. This is all I've ever done in my life is be an educator. And I hope that you will take my advice and take care of yourself and be that great teacher that I know you can be. Again, thank you for joining me today, and I hope you visit my webpage. My webpage has blog ideas. I have several long instructional videos if you want to watch those. I also have some downloadable lessons plans if you'd like those on Socratic seminar and project-based learning, a whole planning guide for only $5. Come on, you can't get anything cheaper than that to do a whole project-based learning unit that may take anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. So think about that. And please subscribe to my YouTube page so we can keep these things going, so I can keep things rolling out to you guys that you great teachers need. Hello and welcome to Teacher Survival Tip number 2. My name is Dr. Stephanie West and today we're going to talk about time management. There is so much we have to do as teachers, correct? There's meetings, there's lesson planning, there's specials, there's special programs that we have to do. So in order to get it all done, you need to have good time management skills. And I'm going to give you 3 easy ways to do this and to get everything done. In 3 simple steps that will make your life so much easier inside the classroom and being at home. So the first step is to set up a calendar, a monthly calendar and a weekly calendar. Here is a picture of my monthly calendar. I leave this on my desk at all times. This is for more of the big things, things that I need to keep track of on a daily basis. This is a copy of my daily schedule. Again, I keep this handy, and it has all 7 days of the week in it. So it helps me keep track of exactly what I need to do each and every day.
So start thinking about how you can have a monthly calendar and a daily calendar that's right on your desk that you never lose, that you can always refer to.
All right, the second step is lesson planning. Now, lesson planning can take up all of our time if we allow it. So always be a week ahead of yourself. So for example, if I'm teaching on Monday, I'm planning for the next Monday. If I'm on Tuesday, I'm planning for the next Tuesday. So by the end of the week, I have all of my copies made. So Friday, by the time I get to Friday, everything is ready to go. All my copies are made, everything's cut out, my grading's done for the week. So when I come in that following Monday, I'm ready to go for the entire week. File folders are great to have. Trays with papers in them for each week is good. Way to just keep yourself organized in your classroom, but always plan a week ahead. And always, never, ever, never plan lessons on the fly. It comes back to get you, and your kids you'll lose your kids' control. The chaos in your class will be out of control. So always be prepared. Be one step ahead of the kids at all times. And by lesson planning, there's ways that I can help you do that. So let's look at a couple strategies that I have used in the past that really work.
Here's my lesson plan for Reading 100, Week 3. I put everything in the table that I need to use. You can see to the side there's the competencies, where you can replace the competencies with the state standards. It has the dates and everything that I need to do. So what I do is I do this for each subject. When I was a kindergarten teacher, I would have one of these for each thing: reading, math, social studies, science. What was nice with this is it lined it out each day to day, put in your topics, your content that you need to cover, and your homework. And then I'd have a sheet for each content area for the week. I also would type these out. By typing them out, I was able to revisit them all the time. I could go back and adjust. Once I had it done, I had my lesson plans, and then it was just reflecting and adding and subtracting where I needed to. So this is a great way to keep yourself organized and a great way to not have to replan for every single school year.
Another tip, one last tip, I promise. And that is to post an agenda in your class every day. You can post it for a full week if you'd like. If not, you can post it day to day. I usually just do day to day. That's the ones I like to use. You can arrange it however you want. There's many designs. So let's look at a couple examples of posting your agenda in your class.
Here are 3 examples of a good agenda. Now the one on the left shows the subject and the time, which most elementary school teachers use. And the ones on the right are used more at the junior high and high school levels with the whole week lined out for them. Some districts require you to do a certain way, some don't, but this is completely up to you on how you arrange these agendas. But research has shown that students and teachers that have agendas posted stay on task more than in classrooms where there is not an agenda. So consider that. It really will keep you on track and the students on track.
Okay, are you overwhelmed? I hope not. So we talked about 3 things you can do. 3 simple things. 1, get a calendar going. Get a full calendar on the top of your desk. Some people like just the month to month in a book. Some like it spread out on their desk like a tabletop calendar. Whatever you need to do, make sure you have one. I have mine as portable since I go to different places all the time. Second, lesson planning. Be prepared and then keep your lessons so that you can just adjust them. Again, like I said, I type mine in so I can go back in, look at my charts, adjust where I need to with dates, whatever. That's the best way to do it. And lastly, post an agenda in your classroom. This will keep you on track throughout the day so you know at noon I do this, 1 I do this, 2 I do this, 3:30 I go home, whatever. But plan your days. Get those time management, and I guarantee you will be so much happier. You'll leave the day feeling not so overwhelmed and out of sorts or anything like this. 3 simple things. Try it. Let me know how you do. Again, thank you for visiting with me, and I hope you subscribe to this video just by clicking the little subscribe button in the corner. And always visit my website to see what else I have posted. Always lots going on in Dr. West's head, so tap in and find it out. See you next time. Welcome back to Teacher Survival Tips. This is Teacher Survival Tip number 3. So we are going to talk today about weathering the storm of the educational world. We have so many different changes in the world of education. We're always changing our standards. It seems like every few years we're changing the standards and then the alignment to the standards which affect our curriculum. So we have to think of all of those. Our kids are getting different. More and more are coming to us from way different places of diversity, different cultures, and the way we deal with them is so different. So today I'm going to give you 3 simple ways that you can weather this storm and become a great teacher and stay a great teacher. The first tip is to stay positive. There is nothing that can be done without a smile. As you look at the district pushes on the curriculum and the rise for student achievement, we're all worried about these darn tests. And they are a part of education and we can't really get around them at this point. So we need to start being positive. So when the district brings out a new curriculum project, put a smile on your face, say, hey, what can we do? Look at those projects and see the positives. If the school comes out with a new program to implement or to intervene or whatnot, put on a positive face and say, okay, let's look at the positives. There's positives in everything we do from the district level and on down. Your administrators are there. Yes, they have a lot of pressure on them, but at the same time, a lot of your curriculum people know what they're doing. And speaking as a former curriculum director, there's a lot of these projects that we're mandated to do. So the best thing you can do is to avoid those negative Nillies out there in the workplace. There's always there. So the best thing to do to weather the changes that are constantly coming at you is to put a smile on your face and find the positives. And then put it in your calendar. Start mapping it out. When can I work on these projects? When can I implement them? And look at the timelines. But be positive. And put a smile on your face because the kids deserve you to be positive and to take these things that you're given and make a difference for them. All right, number 2, let's be flexible. I know you hear that as a teacher all the time, and you're probably in a profession that's not teaching, and we always have to be so flexible. But what does that mean? You just need to put some wiggle room into your day. Put some wiggle room into where if a lesson is being interrupted by something that's going on, then say, okay, I can come back to it. You know, the more flexible you are, the more you'll sustain all the challenges and be able to tackle all these challenges in this storm of education right now and the changes. So be flexible. Find room in your schedule that you can be flexible. Wiggle around. So when you come in each day, if something hits it at the last minute, say like a bus evacuation drill, which always comes up out of the blue, you have some wiggle room in there that you can say, okay, I can do this. I can do this. Your after school schedule, you know, put some wiggle room in there if you're all of a sudden called to meetings or whatnot. And again, being flexible eases the tension in you. It relaxes you by being flexible and being willing to be part of that team that's going to make a difference for kids. All right, my last one for weathering this storm is number 3. And this is probably one of the most important, is to be kind to yourself. Again, be kind to yourself.
If you don't get it all done, that's okay. There's always tomorrow. But pat yourself on your back today because you did a great job today. You made it through the day, and you always have tomorrow to get caught up, or the next day, or whatnot. Just remember, meet your children's needs. Meet those student needs first. Build those relationships first. Be the advocate for the kids first. And then be flexible. And then be positive in all of it, because that's what makes a difference. In your soul, being and releasing that stress will make a huge difference in the way you see your world and your profession as a teacher. All right, today we talked about 3 important ways to weather this storm. 1 is to be positive. Find those positive people. Surround yourself with positive people. 2, be flexible. Be flexible, be willing to move, be willing to change if you need to. And 3, be kind to yourself. It is a big job. These kids need you, and that's the most important thing. So I hope you will return again to see my next teacher survival tip that's coming up this week. Always, again, subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is here. There's a little button in the corner for you to subscribe to me. And visit my webpage, which will be on the next slide. Again, have a wonderful day, and you are great teachers. Pat yourself on the back. You're doing a great job. All right, welcome. Today we're going to talk about the 4th and final teacher survival skill, and that is embracing the title of teachers. So we have talked about avoiding teacher burnout. We talked about how to avoid the stress, how to cut that down. We talked about time management skills, and we also talked about, let me remember. That's right, weathering the storm of educational changes and the leadership changes and all of that. But today is probably the most important. It's the soul of teaching. Why do we teach? And that is, why do we call ourselves teachers? So to me, teaching is a calling. It's not a profession. It's not a career. It is a calling. It's in my heart. It's in my soul. I still remember the day that I was 5 years old and I told my mother I was going to be a teacher, and how I have worked my entire life to be a great teacher, an educator, somebody there for the kids. So when you think about being a teacher, what is it to you? Find deep in your soul. If it's not a calling, if it's just a great job so you can have your summers off and all your holidays, then you're in the wrong profession. Teaching's tough. Teaching's hard. You have to deal with all the diversity that comes into your room and embrace that diversity. Those different cultures and thoughts and ideas that come into your class can be embraced. Deal with your discipline issues with a heart of gold. Be the advocate for the kids. Some of these behaviors aren't easy. The kids today aren't easy, but they need us. So in your heart, if you are there for the kids, if your soul and your heart is in teaching because it's more of a calling to you than a profession, then embrace that. Embrace that title of teachers, because at the end of the day, it's all about the kids. That's why we're here. It's all about the kids, and they deserve good teachers. I hope this series of videos was helpful to you on teacher survival skills. And again, think of all the things that we've talked about. If you ever need questions answered, please email me. Go to my site. You can add comments onto my website. And again, always subscribe to my YouTube channel so I can keep this going and be able to provide you with more and more. And again, on the last slide, you will see the address to my webpage that has all my videos, all the teacher skills videos, and all my guest blogs. I've been writing for a few publications now, so you can visit all of those on my webpage. So I hope to see you again, and have a wonderful day.